Hi everyone, I want to share with you how to make this easy beef stew, but there is a secret ingredient that will definitely give this stew a very hearty taste, and I want to share it with you, so let's go ahead and let's get started. So the first thing we have here is we have our beef for stew, and I shop at my local commissary for my meats, and so normally this is the chuck steak, and the chuck steak is part of the shoulder on the cow, and it's normally a little bit tough, and that's why I like to use it, because we're cooking it over a long period of time. So we braise it and we brown the meat really good, and that locks in the flavors, and then we kind of slow cook it and it gets very tender. Now in this bowl here I have my main spices that I always use for pretty much everything, and that's garlic powder, onion powder, and pepper. Now I do have a little bit of salt, but I didn't put as much as I would, because also what I mixed in is I mixed in a little bit of this Dale seasoning here, and that the main ingredients is soy sauce, so that has some salt in there by itself, and then I put a little Worcestershire sauce in there, and I also have this beef stock here, because what we're going to do is once we brown our meat, we're going to deglaze the pan with this beef stock. So what makes this beef stew easy, or my easy version, is instead of me having to cut up my vegetables individually, I just pick up a pack of the frozen vegetables for soup. And this is what makes it quick, but what you don't want to do is you don't want to put it in there while your meat is simmering and getting tender. You want to put this in here, I say about the last 30 to 45 minutes, because you don't want the vegetables to overcook. But in this particular pack right here, we have potatoes, we have carrots, tomatoes, corn, green beans, onion, peas, and carrots. Those are all the ingredients that I use for my longer version of beef stew. But like I said, you don't have to cut those up individually. You can just pour this in towards the end, let it simmer, and you have an easy version. So right now my pan or my pot is getting hot, but you have to stick around for the secret ingredient, because not only is this the easy version of the beef stew, but it's also a nice flavorful beef stew. Now I'm doing this on the stove today, but you can also do this in the crock pot using the same steps as if we're using it on the stove. While my oil is getting hot, and I just put like a thin layer on the bottom, but while that's getting hot, I always just put my hand kind of right here to see, and this pretty much lets me know when I'm ready to start braising or browning my meat. But I also don't like to overcrowd my pot or my pan, so I have this little container right here, so we may have to do it in batches because I have quite a bit here. But just depending on the size of your family, that's how much meat that you'll need. My family, they like a little bit more meat in their beef stew. That way I can get them to eat their vegetables as well. But we'll do it in batches so that we don't overcrowd the browning process. So we're going to go ahead and get started. And I don't know if I mentioned to you, but in my bowl of the cube beef, I also cut up like half an onion, and I also put 2 cloves of garlic. So all of that is going into here as we're browning it, and so that way the flavors can really get in there. So as soon as I put the meat in the pan, it already smells divine in here. But that's about how much I want to put in the pan. So I'll probably have to do like 3 batches. But all we want to do is we just want to brown it very nice on all sides, which is going to lock in that flavor. So I'll do this probably like 2 more times, and then we should be ready. And I'll show you, after we deglaze the pan, I'll show you my secret ingredient. So let me go ahead and just start checking so you could see the browning on it. So I don't know if you could see this, but we just want it to be brown on all sides. So I'm just going to turn over the sides, and I have it like on a medium heat, but I'll crank it up just a little bit, not a lot, to go ahead and get it to brown on all sides. Okay, so this was our second batch right here, and I think I'm going to have to do at least 2 more batches. So we're just going to get this out. It's browned on all sides, and the onions and the garlic, they're sauteing nicely in here. But like I said, we're going to deglaze the pan and get all of this goodness under here to really get all the goodness down here off the bottom. It's stuck just a little bit, not a lot, and we'll get that up once we deglaze the pan with the beef broth that we have. So I tried to zoom in as much as possible because this is our last and final batch here, and now we're going to deglaze. And I'm going to take all the meat out so I can show you what I mean. Okay, so many people might look at this and say you have burnt your pan, or this is burnt. But let me tell you, like one of my dad's favorite saying, trust me, this is not burnt. This is where all of your flavor is. And when I deglaze the pan, this is all the garlic, the onions, and all the seasonings that I used. And I'm going to use some beef stock here. I'm using this beef stock, and you can also use wine, you can use beef broth, but basically when they say deglaze, we're just going to put some liquid here, and the pan still has to be hot, but I'm going to put liquid in here and stir the brown bits, and that's going to bring everything up into this liquid, and it is where all the flavor is. So as the beef stew is simmering, all this flavor, all this goodness is in the liquid here. And so that's what we mean by deglazing the pan. As you see, all of it is coming up. I'll put a little bit more in here. And so that is where our flavor is going to be, in the liquid. So now I have deglazed my pan. All of those brown bits, all of the onions, all of the garlic that was on the bottom of the pan are now in this liquid. Nothing is on the bottom. And so I am going to pour the rest of the beef stock in here, and I'm going to add the meat, all of it, back in this one pot, and get ready because the secret ingredient is coming. Okay, so I have all of my meat back into the pot, and I poured the rest of the beef stock in here. But this is where the secret ingredient comes from. This is what is going to give your beef stew flavor without you having to keep going in and tasting it and making sure that the seasoning is right. Hold on to your seats, everybody. Let me get it for you. And I'm going to move it over here so you can see it. But this is what you want to get from the grocery store. You want to get V8 juice, the original one. If you like a little spice, they also have the V8 hot and spicy, I think, but we get the original. This is it's vegetable juice, and it just has so much flavor, and it gives your beef stew so much flavor. And I am turning it around here, and let me get focused. But what it has is it has the juices of tomatoes, carrots, celery, beets, parsley, lettuce, watercress, spinach, and that just really gives your beef stew so much flavor. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pour this vegetable juice into the beef stew. I'm going to bring it up to a boil, and then I'm going to turn it down and let it simmer I'll probably come back in maybe like 45 minutes to an hour to check everything out, to check the tenderness of my meat. And then that's probably when I'll go ahead and I'll add the vegetables for soup, the frozen vegetables that I showed you earlier in the video. Okay, so this is a 46 ounce can, and I used the whole thing. There's nothing left in here. I used everything. So all I'm going to do is put my top on, let it come to a boil and let it simmer, and then we'll come back and we'll check it and see if we're ready to put our vegetables into the stew. So it's been about 45 minutes, and at this point I want to do two things. The first thing that I want to do is give everything a good stir, because as you can see, the liquid is reducing nicely. I have it on kind of like a medium simmer. So I just want to stir. And normally when I stir the meat, I can pretty much tell if it needs more. Like, to me, just by the feel of it, it's going to need a little bit more cooking time. It is starting to get tender, but it will need a little bit more cooking time, because like I said, this is part of the shoulder, and that's what the cow uses a lot of, that muscle. So that is why it is tough, and it definitely needs to be cooked till it's tender. And at this point, what I also do, no double dipping, but I take like a teaspoon here and I just kind of get a little bit of liquid. And what you want to do, don't burn your mouth, but you want to taste it, to taste the seasoning of it, and that will help you determine if you need to add a little more spices, such as salt or garlic or onion or pepper. But that's what you do then. And so let me just give it a quick taste. Everything is tasting good, because like I said, that the VA is the secret. That gives it a lot of flavor. Everything is good, but like I said, just based on stirring, and I kind of take the meat and it still needs to cook. So I'm just going to put the top back on and check it in about 20 minutes, because I'm going to once it start getting tender, I'll put those frozen vegetables in, and they don't take very long to cook, and you don't want them to overcook. So once the meat gets tender, I'll put the vegetables in, let them cook for about 30 minutes, and then you are pretty much done with your beef stew. So it's been maybe about 15-20 minutes since I last showed you the progress. And now all I'm going to do is stir it again. And I just pretty much take like a piece. You could do two things. You could take like a piece of the beef stew and put it to the side and kind of see the doneness. And as you can see, I'm able to go through it with this spoon, so that way I know it's nice and tender and ready. Or you can just take a piece of the meat out and taste it for yourself, but it is nice and tender and it is ready to go. So the only thing that I'm going to do now is take my vegetables for soup, and I'm going to pour them in this pot, give it a good stir, and about 20 to 30 minutes later, I'm going to use the whole bag. 20 to 30 minutes later, it is pretty much done. And so while this is cooking, I am going to go ahead and make some cornbread muffins, because I think that will go just perfect with this beef stew. I'm giving a very good stir here, and like I said, these are frozen. You just go ahead and you let it simmer really nicely for about 20 to 30 minutes, and it's easy as that. Okay, so it is just that simple. Once everything is done, I just made some cornbread muffins, and you can just serve that along with this hearty beef stew. And as always, thank you so much for watching this video, and I hope you share this video with your family and your friends. And I also hope that you give this recipe a try. You will definitely love it. And if you're not a subscriber, we would love to have you as a subscriber, and please ensure that you tap the bell so that you can receive notifications each and every time we upload a new video. And again, thank you so much for watching, and until the next video, bye bye.